Hello. The chat in the YouTube. So, this is the first time I have ever gone live on two devices. So I will keep trying to look at the camera. And the reason why I'm going live on YouTube, mainly because normally I would just go live hello on Instagram. But the reason I'm going live on YouTube as well is because this is to chat all about the MAL. And the MAL is being done loads of places, and the Facebook chat is amazing. But Facebook translates everything for us so we can talk to each other. Whereas on Instagram, I can't do that so easily. But with YouTube, I can save this afterwards. And then hopefully it will generate my English subtitles. And then I can translate that transcript so you can get different subtitles in different languages. So hopefully it will mean that everyone can listen and join in. I'm just going to tilt the Instagram one a little bit more. Everyone can join in and listen. Hello, hello. And I will try and keep my eye on the chat from both of them. Hello, hello. So welcome. This is a little chat about the MAL so far. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm loving it. It makes me quite nervous each week because I've never done a project like this. I've never done a mystery project. I don't know how many of you have done mystery projects, or if this is something that you do and you're used to the surprise. But for me as a designer, I get quite nervous each week, waiting to hopefully that you'll like the part that's released. Oh, someone's saying they're behind. This is like one of the one things I want to stress about this. Well, the opposite to stress about the make along, because quite a few people were chatting, and we all have really, really different amounts of time that we can make, right? So we all have really different amounts of time we can dedicate to the make along. So the make along is broken down, so we can put it in like bite-sized chunks, and we can do videos for each part. And we can slow release, but it's not going to go anywhere. So do not worry if you feel that you're behind. You're not behind. It's all about having fun and going at your own pace. And so I don't want anyone to feel like the pressure or to stress that they're not keeping up. It should be fun. We're all making these things because we love them and we want to enjoy it. And so, yeah, it should really be fun. So don't try and feel the pressure too much. So the Facebook group is going to stay there. The videos will stay there. If you've signed up to the pattern, you will keep getting an email. So you can just save that and you can work on it in your own time. And I think a few people are asking me, I've got my list of questions that I'm going to go through and answers. And that was one of the things people were how do you just design a MAL or break down a project? And so I thought I would talk a little bit about that, because in my lives with hobby I've spoken about the process of designing the make along, but I haven't spoken that much about then actually I suppose the building of the make along, and a few of you are interested about that, so I will do a little chat about that. So I'll just do a little run through actually what I'll go through in this double live run up, and I'm going to talk a little bit about building the make along. I've got some questions that you've asked me. I've made a giant one, a giant half and half diagonal block, because I know that these two triangles were really annoying some people, and so I thought I would make a big one and I would go through making, I'll show you joining. I've got a half here ready to join, and I've done it in orange because it shows up on the camera better, so I can show you where the stitches go. So I'll take you through joining our block nice and steadily, step by step, so you can see that bit if this is something that's causing you a scupper. So I've got one of those, so I'll go through that in real time, nice and slow and paced for us all to go through it. I've got some of my blocks to show you, because another thing that people I think are getting worried about, or something that comes up a lot, is they're a bit worried if their block isn't perfectly square. Yeah, crochet is a bit wonky. So is knitting. So you can, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my squares and when I decide to block, and I'll explain blocking. And then I will answer some questions if you've got any live in the chats after I've gone through those. And you can tell me if you think I've forgotten anything. So I'm going to try and not talk super fast, so the subtitles will get in there when I convert the YouTube video, so we can have it in all the languages. And so yeah, so now we've got quite a few people here. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on your, what are we today, Wednesday afternoon. And thank you so much for doing the cow. This project has been like a massive project for me, really exciting. Hobby have been an absolute dreamboat to work with. And yeah, it's one of the biggest projects I've ever done. So it's really exciting working along with all of you guys making your pieces. I know when it first came out and there was all the small bits, not everybody is a fan of small squares. And also how I work and I use my colour. I'm quite Marmite is what we say in like the UK. It's like this food that you either love or you hate. And I think my designs can be like that. You either, you know, they're quite bright and bold and I like a lot of colour and a lot of colour clash. So it might not be your cup of tea, but that's okay. It's not for everybody. And I also love seeing in the like Facebook group or on my Instagram where people are choosing their own colours and like their own colour patterns. And so I find that really exciting because sometimes they just work in a way that's like really different. Like just my brain doesn't put those things together. So it's so nice seeing them. And so, yeah, so I'm going to just go through some of the questions. I'll try and keep in a kind of order. And yeah, so hello. Yeah, so with the make along, it's quite interesting trying to design a make along. And so I hope so far you've enjoyed the steps and they're made to build each week and challenge you a bit, because quite a lot of the time with make alongs, people like to learn new techniques each week. Yeah, people like to learn new techniques each week. So hopefully they're like each week is building slightly, you're learning something different. When we're learning something different, sometimes we don't get it straight away, we have to practice. So if it's a technique that you're maybe a little bit daunted for that week or you're not quite sure, then I would always say like just do a test one, use some scrap yarn and do a test one. And that can really just help you feel more confident and comfortable with like trying then your piece, because it's always the way that after we do one, it gets a little bit like easier. So yeah, with the mal, that's a big thing. Like when you're thinking about designing, sometimes it's like quite tricky because it's all different parts. And also I'm used to designing patterns and I don't normally stock yarn. I just design the patterns. And so actually like doing a make along is quite like a brain challenge, I find, for a designer, because you play with two different things. So the task is to sort of make something, and especially when it's a garment, it's not a blanket. So there's different things to think about because there's sizing. But because of how, like, I suppose, especially when it's working with a company that sell yarn, how that works is that you have to like lock in your colors and pretty much your yarn quantities really early, most of the time before you finished making your piece, because like lead times, they have to order the yarn so far in advance or like book it that you have to like kind of think about your design roughly, think about your colors, kind of think about how much yarn you'll probably need for each piece. And so at the beginning, it's kind of like a weird mathematical like experiment, because normally when I design, I will design and I will make it, and I'll usually make all the different sizes and I'll work out the yarn quantity. And also I don't have to, because I'm not selling kits, I'm normally not selling yarn, I don't have to think so smart about how you use the yarn. But especially when you're doing kind of kits or bundles and you want them to be certain price points, so that means so many balls of yarn, you have to like work within this. And so for like a designer, it's really fun, but it's quite a challenge because you just think in a really different way. And so with this hobby mail, we knew we wanted to make it in 6 parts, like in 6 weeks. That might not mean that you actually make your piece in 6 weeks. There's no rush to finish your piece. But we were going to break it down into 6 chunks because that's normally quite like a nice thing. And so then it's thinking about when you're making a piece or making a garment in this point, it's thinking about how you break down. So how do you include like something new and something interesting each week? How do you fit like the brief that Hobby gave me about it being like super colorful? How do you, it's like thinking about all these layers. So at the beginning, it's one of those things that really sort of makes my like brain like, and so it was such a challenge, but it was so fun. And for this make along, I taught myself loads of techniques that I hadn't done before, that were new, which is also really exciting because I love anything that, like for me, I'm also learning when we're doing this. And so, so we break it down into 6 chunks. And so breaking it down, and the reason why, because this has been brought up a little bit where people are saying like, I'm running out of some of my yarn. Am I going to have enough for the next bits, or how come we're joining in the middle? And so I've done a few different make-alongs before, never a mystery make-along, but a few different like make-alongs. And sometimes joining is right at the end. And sometimes it's like you've got all the momentum and then you have to join it. And sometimes then you lose momentum. So for this, I wanted to put the joining in the middle. So that is what we've got tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but we've got our like main bit of joining in the middle. And that one gives like a little bit of catch-up time for finishing off your blocks. But also it means that we kind of like, when we get to the end, we don't suddenly have to join loads of stuff. Like it can happen quite quickly, and then we can all put our cardigans on and be like really happy that they're finished without having to do so much like joining at the end. So hopefully this week you will enjoy, you'll sort of get a little actually sneak, like a lot of the mystery is revealed this week. Not all of it, but we really start to see our cardigan sort of come together, and we see how those blocks are put together. I really loved seeing your ideas of how the blocks are going together, like your different combinations. So that's been really, really fun. Really fun to see like your ideas and see who's getting it right and who's got different ideas. And what I love about these blocks, and what I love really about sort of squares, so I know not everybody loves squares. I love squares. I wrote a book last year all about like all different granny squares. So I'm a square lover. And I really like them in make-alongs because you learn it to be part of the piece we're all making together. But actually then they're like individual blocks that you can use for whatever you want afterwards. So you can use them in blankets, in bags and accessories. So hopefully, even if like the cardigan, you're sort of not making the cardigan, you're not sure if that's like your cup of tea or you're waiting to see, like what it will look like in the end. Hopefully you can still enjoy doing the different components separately. Who doesn't love granny squares also? I mean, you're coming to the wrong place if you don't like granny squares, because I think I'm like a walking embodiment of a granny square most times. So you can use them for different things. And so that brings me a little bit to joining. So some of you are a bit worried about joining. We've got a whole week. This whole next section is all about joining. So I take you through all the joining. A lot of it for both knit and crochet is sewn, is stitched. And I know there's been some sort of red flags where people don't like sewing joining so much. I take you through it. It's really simply stitched together. I'm not a perfect maker, but I like things to look made. I like that hand touchness. So I really like the look of stuff when it's sewn together. But this is what I'm going to say. If you are a crochet person and you want to sort of crochet your blocks together, you totally can. But this is my like caveat. When you crochet join, it uses so much more yarn than stitching. So it eats lots more yarn. So if you were using like your own yarn for this project and you've got loads of it, then go ahead. If you prefer crocheting, you can crochet them. If you're using the crochet like kits where you've got all the yarn from Hobby, if you crochet join all your edges, you might run out of yarn. So that's just like my red flag. So you can totally do it if you don't want to stitch. But just remember, it eats so much yarn, because actually when you sew, when you sort of double crochet join, if that's what you prefer to do, and there is a little bit of that in the crochet version, but if you double crochet join, it uses probably about 3 times the amount of yarn when you do it. So it will use up a lot more of your yarn. So you just got to be careful for that. I'm just going to check in with the chat. Perfect. Yeah, so that is my one thing. So I'm going to show you how to stitch it. And actually the stitching process for the knit and the crochet is pretty similar. And I'm going to teach you like step by step. A lot of people were also asking on our last block, because most of our blocks have looked pretty much exactly the same so far. But on our log cabin block, our crochet one has got a double crochet, single crochet. This is where I usually use UK terms, so I have to switch into hobby mode, so American terms, US terms. Has got a single crochet border on it, but the knit one hasn't. And this is just for when joining. I've never bordered things in knit before. I don't think it needs it, but I think in crochet it looks a little bit neater because of how the stitches work when we start to join things. So that is purely the only reason why that little bit is different, why the knit one doesn't have a little outline, because I've never sort of done a knit outline like that. And when you join it, you don't, in my eyes, you don't really need it. Just in the crochet house, stitches fit slightly differently. It just looks a little bit nicer with the double single crochet. Get that right, Katie. Single crochet join around the edge. So yeah, so it just looks, but other than that, they've been the same. So for me with the make along, that was one of the biggest challenges, was I wanted to make a piece in knit and crochet and for them to look pretty much the same. Like obviously they feel different because the textures are slightly different, and the yarn we use, like Hobby wanted to use, like explore their colours but use their different yarns, so the yarn is different, so it gives you a different feel. But visually, I wanted them to look the same. And so that was quite exciting as a designer, like working out what squares I could do in which ways and which parts I could do in certain things, and what skills I could use from both. Just going to have a little sip of tea. What skills I could use in both. And how they would look, you know, similar or different. So it's really nice seeing you make them in both. And I hope knitters and crocheters are enjoying them, and it's quite nice to see. I've seen like in the Facebook group a few people thinking like, oh, I might try knitting because they haven't knitted before, they're a crocheter, and see how it looks like. So I find that quite exciting, seeing how you might do it in different ways. But yeah, so hopefully to everyone looking at them, they're looking quite similar. But this is another thing about time. So you will find, and I mean, I knit bigger pieces a lot less. I crochet a lot more. So I'm a lot quicker at crochet. But crochet is generally quicker than knitting. And so with the make along, this is why I want to be like, there is no pressure to work in time each week. Like I know everyone wants to try and keep up, but it's really about you enjoying it. And this was one of the things, like with making, we wanted to make them at the same time, the projects, but actually generally knitting is a bit slower. So for me personally, for every like one knit block I make, so say like the diagonal block, I can probably make 4 crochet blocks for every one knit block I make in terms of my pace, my personal pace. So if you are knitting, it is probably going a little bit slower. But But also, like, yeah, that's just one thing I just really want to stress is like to have fun with it and don't feel the pressure. It's not going anywhere. The pattern's going to be there. The Facebook group is going to be there, so you can like come back for your tips and tricks, and just work at it at your own pace, so you enjoy it. Because we want these cardigans to be like a massive labour of love, and for us to really, us to love our cardigans. Yes, someone is asking. Yes, I do. So yeah, I crochet and I knit, but I generally, this is one of my first knitting patterns. So when I used to have a fashion brand, I used to knit and mainly machine knit a lot. And I teach knitting and crochet classes. And so I knit a lot, but kind of small bits, not so much big bits. So for me, this was a really, really fun project. And so hobby sort of convinced me to dust off my knitting needles, and to like try doing it together. And so yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Like I was saying, like I think I'm pushing myself and I'm learning lots at the same time, as doing this. So I'm going to go through my questions to make sure I've got some of them. Colours. That's one I can tick off my things. So colours. A lot of people are asking about colours or like switching colours. And I love seeing other people's colour combos. Like I'm not precious over the ones I design. And like I said, like these pieces are for you, for all of you to like love and wear. So you want to make the colours that you love. I'm really like also honoured of everyone like doing the mystery, and trusting me in my design choices. But yeah, if you're switching colours or you're thinking about doing another one and switching your colours, my top tip is actually to think about the tones. So what I tend to do when I'm sometimes not sure about colours or if I'm switching colours, rather than looking at them, so like if I pick up one of my squares, don't look, I've got all my ends, naughty maker. If you like have a picture, so you can use the pictures in the pattern from the mal, and if you turn it grayscale, so black and white, it will show you the tones, like which ones, and you can see the contrast between the colours. And so actually I would use this as a tool if you're thinking about changing colours, because the design, it will give you the same kind of punch, like the same degree of like clash and tonal colorway, but without thinking about it in colors. So think about it in tones. So what I sometimes do is like then take a picture of like my yarns and I like label them and then take a picture of them and then turn that into black and white. And I will see like which ones contrast against each other, which ones have got that sort of tonal contrast. So if you're thinking about switching colors, that is one way that I like to do it. But yeah, so think about it in terms of like how the tones work together. People are asking how I picked the colors. So like I was saying earlier, like you have to sort of when you're doing something like a make along and they're ordering yarn, you have to like pre-book your colors. So we chose the color palette, and then I sort of did one set of small swatches before we worked out the piece. And we're thinking about like how we could make a piece a certain size using a certain amount of yarn so we could like stay within certain price ranges, for all the pieces. Stay in certain price ranges for all the pieces. And so you think about it all like that. And so then when it comes to colour usage, I would like have my pile of yarn when I'm making my sample and sort of work through it and try and evenly work through it to make sure that I'm sort of spreading my yarn out, and so that then we've ordered, like when they put the big order in, we've ordered the right thing. So I'm quite instinctual with my colour choice. I find it quite hard to like draw out my colours first and then like plan them that way. I like need to see them in my hands. I need to see them. I need to see how they work together the first time. I'm quite bad at planning. Like if I draw it and color in, I can never quite visualize it. Like I have to do it, have to see it. So that could be something that if you're thinking about changing colors, also you do something like the log cabin block, where it's got basically all of the colors. And you could do a swatch playing around with colours to sort of think about your colour palette that you might want to switch to. I think that's probably a really good one to play with, to think about. So that is when I'm thinking about colours. And thinking about how something is broken down leads me into people were asking about sort of lengthening their cardigan. They wanted to change the length because it's sort of a set size. So from tomorrow, once we've seen how to join the squares, that will sort of explain how the bits go together for a section of it. And so that will explain it a little bit more. So there are ways that you can lengthen your cardigan. You will need probably more yarn if you want to make it a bit longer. But tomorrow, I don't want to spoil anything yet. So tomorrow, it will explain it a little bit more about how it goes together. And so what I will do in my next like make along chit chat, I will talk to you about how to lengthen your cardigan if you want it to be sort of longer, because it's a bit more like a bomber jacket, sort of bomber jacket fit at the moment. So yeah, if you're thinking about you want to make it longer, you will probably need more yarn. But I will go through, I'll do like another one of these, and I can go through how we can adapt it and how we can lengthen it. So let me just go to my questions. So we've got that. Yarn usage. So some people are worried that some of their yarns, like their colours, they've got up to week, like part 3, and some of their colours are running out. Do not panic. Actually, for our next stages, we've got our joining stage, and we have another stage where actually we mainly use our base colour. And then our final stage uses up all the odds and ends of our yarn. But if some have run out by that point, it doesn't matter. That is why we have that stage at the end. So it makes the most of our yarn packs and sort of uses up all the yarn in the most sort of economical way. Because yeah, especially when you design something in a pack and you're using lovely yarn, you want to use it as best as you can. So hopefully, if your yarn has lasted, like if all your colours have lasted until this point, part 3, you should be okay. So don't worry about that, because we're mainly, yeah, you will have enough, it will ease out. So that is something to don't worry too much about if your yarn is looking low. Okay, tick that off. Oh, people were also asking for the crochet about the border round and the edge stitch count. So for this round, technically what you can use is there's the stitch count for the long edge. The edge, where are we? Where's my crochet one? Am I sat on it? Just finding my crochet log cabin. On the floor, that's why. So when it comes to your log cabin, both of you, you can use the stitch count for this long edge, and then you'll just also have the one in the corner. But you don't need to be, as long as you're just working one stitch into the top of each stitch and then following the same pattern as we've been going over the side bits, you will be fine. You will have enough. But yes, if you want to work out how many stitches you should have along each edge, just use this the stitch count for your long edge. And just remember, you've also got your chains in the corners so it can turn. Hopefully that will help. So yes, so that is for your stitch count. Then another little thing about when people are worried about their squares being a little bit wonky or not quite straight or twisting a little bit, and blocking. So if you don't know what blocking is, if you've been on the Facebook group, you will see lots of people have like boards with pins and they stretch their squares onto them. So you can do that. You can block as you go, which means you sort of put all your squares out. I don't generally block as I go. I generally block once I've joined some bits together. That's my personal preference, but each to their own, however you like to block. But what I want to say is, like, some of you are making beautiful squares, and then really worrying if they're a little bit wonky. Crochet is quite wonky, knit is quite wonky. Don't worry. If they're coming out roughly the right size, once we join them together, they're going to look magical. They're going to look beautiful. It will hold them in shape. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit skew-iff. Because yes, you can choose to block them individually, or I generally join them and then block once they're joined, because I find it a little bit easier and I only have to do it once, but that's fine. But just be really kind to yourself, all you lovely makers and your beautiful squares, because it doesn't matter if they're a little bit wonky. It doesn't matter. You know, if they're really misshapen, maybe you want to practice one and then practice again. But yeah, if they're just a little bit skew-iff, be kind to yourselves. Crochet, I love crochet and knitting and working in fabric like this because it's got stretch, it's got give. It reacts, like it can like fold in place. Like, I am not precise enough to be a sewer. Like, I tried being a sewer. That is not for me. You have to be quite precise. It has to be quite clean and crisp. Crochet and knit has got that give in it. It's got that ease. So like, enjoy that. Like, be kind to yourself. Love what you're making. Love your pieces. Just let it, you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. My coaster stuck to the bottom. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. So let's have a little look at what questions I haven't answered. Tension. So with your tension, everyone's tension is so different. It's one of those things that can really, really change. It's so different. And that's fine. Yeah, it's that's like fine. I was taught to crochet pretty much by my mum. Our tension, we usually use like a hook, maybe a hook and a half different. When we were knitting, we were using like knitting needles different. And that's why sort of doing one and checking your tension is really, really important. But then there's lots of things. So I always say, when it comes to tension, don't try and change. Like, if you're completely new to crochet, you might need to practice a little bit, or same with knitting, but don't try and change yourself so much. Change your tools. So if it's becoming too tight and like too small, then you need to loosen up and you need to use a bigger hook or needle. If it's too big, you could go down. What some people have done, and this is really clever, and all I'm going to say is I don't know how it will affect your yarn usage, because it might eat it a bit differently. But some people were finding that like they're trying to make a size one and they couldn't get the right size and theirs was coming out really small. So actually they started using the stitch count for a size 2 and it worked out. So it will eat the yarn differently. So if you're using your stash or you don't mind buying more, it will consume it differently. But go with what you think looks best, because we all work differently. And that's the kind of joy of, it could be the joy and the bane when you're trying to make something of knitting and crochet, but it will all look slightly different. And some people have like smoother tension, some people have looser, and we can all be using different, different hooks and needles, and it, you know, it comes out differently. But it's all about just trying to get the size, the centimeter or inch size for your square, getting it right. Also, how we use stitches makes our tension change a little bit different. So you might find that for the corner block, week 1, your tension, you kind of did one straight away and it was right. And then you went to do the diagonal block and your tension was a little bit different. And sometimes it's also down to, if you're doing a technique that you haven't done before and it's a bit new, we're a little bit tighter and then you find it's tighter or a bit looser. And so it's really about, like, if you're worrying about your tension, like, do one, even sometimes do a practice one and some spare yarn, and then practice with the yarn. And yeah, so change your tools. You can do it that way. Or, and I'm just saying it will change your yarn usage. So if you're using the kit, I like put a warning by this one. But if you found that when you were crocheting, maybe your stitches looked too meshy or too open, you could then sometimes, and you wanted to do it a lot tighter, you could then work tighter and then sort of make the different size, but it actually would come out the right stitch count. So, but that's only like a few people where their tension was quite different and they said they'd change. So I just wanted to share that as an option if you were thinking about changing that way. But yes, but mainly like change your hook, change your needle. And also if it is like a little bit out, like again, be really kind. There's a lot of stretch with these babies, a lot of stretch. And so if it's a tiny bit out and you're like trying to perfect, like as long as it's roughly the same size, you'll be okay. I'm just checking some of the comments. Yeah, someone's saying like if you use a different hold, so I use like a pen hold when I'm crocheting. If you use a knife hold, it's all about how you sort of, the angle apparently that you hold your crochet hook to how you pull, which affects your tension. So it just might be a little bit different. So yeah, it's all about a little bit of practice and see what works best for you. So just remember, like change your hook, change your needle, have a little go to see what works. But yeah, you don't have to be, you want them to be pretty much close to that. Also, our cardigan is quite boxy, so there's a little bit, there's like give in it. But yeah, so just stick with your tension, and also trying to get your tension to roughly the right size is also helpful for yarn usage. Like it will eat a similar amount of yarn. So that holds. So we've done tension, blocking. Oh, people are asking about charts and reading. So if you are someone who has mainly learned to crochet through visuals, or you're a visual learner, you might find working with charts helpful. There's charts for the first two parts that you can follow along with. And actually in the Facebook group, some people have drawn charts for the third part. And yeah, they're quite a helpful way. If you're more visual, they sort of look like the stitches more, so you might find that helpful. Also, when it comes to crochet, and these are charts for crochet, it's quite helpful if you're switching between, or like not sure if something is US or UK terms, because the symbols are always the same. So it helps you sort of, if you get used to being able to read them, it really helps. So someone is asking if I have any other make-alongs planned. At the moment, no. I really love the make-along, and I really love breaking it down. So it's one thing that I'm working on much more with my own patterns. So this pattern I've worked with Hobby, but I also make my own patterns and sell them on my website and on Ravelry and Lovecrafts, and also on Hobby. There's some patterns, and so what I'm going to start doing with my own patterns is way more filmed segments, like broken down, because I've found a lot of people learn through visuals. So that's why I love make-alongs, that we've got the videos, and that was really important to me for this make-along, that we did videos for each part, that they could like take us through each section step by step, because I think a lot of people avoid sort of, they learn how to make things, or they might learn how to make things from a friend or from YouTube, and then like learning to read patterns is quite a big jump. And so hopefully doing more videos will just break down each step. And so I don't have any official make-alongs in the works, but I'm going to start including way more of them in my own work, because I love also making it with you guys, and it really helps, I think, just open up knit and crochet to different people. Yeah, those people, perfect. Yeah, so hopefully the videos will really help with that bit. And then, okay, so now I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this on the two cameras. It might be a bit funny, but I'm going to go through that triangle step by step. And I'm only doing like a size 1, I'm doing it really chunky, but I'm going to go through the big beast and the join on the big beast. So I've got a half. So this is my equivalent to my, I'll wait for it to go in focus. Yes, the equivalent to my like base color, my white half, my part 1. I've just done it in this color because it's brighter. And so we can see, focus, we can see our stitches better. And so we're going to make a big one like this. I haven't got any more big chunky yarn. So I'm just going to take out my second half quickly and show you. For those of you who are in the chats, how did you get on with your diagonal blocks? Are some of you here for some tips for your diagonal blocks? Hopefully I can fix that. So let's get to the beginning. So, and also, can I say this? Like, if there's some people like sharing how to do, you do them all at once, like you do 2 colors. When it comes to like the block, if you've got a preferred way of doing something and that's the way you want to do it, go ahead. Like, it is like there's normally so many different ways in crochet and knit to do the same thing. And it's usually like passed down knowledge and everyone's got like little different tips and tricks. Like I really like seeing some of the log cabin blocks where people have done them in full single crochet in different ways. Yeah, so I am not super precious with how I make. I just want everyone to do it in a way that they prefer. Yeah, in a way that they prefer. And so if you have got like a tip that if you learn or a way that you work it that works for you, then like you can do your blocks that way. I have never done my half and half blocks. Like I love a diagonal block. I've never done a half and half one doing the 2 colors at once. Now you can actually all see a little bit better. So I've got my yarn. I'm going to come and I'm going to do a slip knot. So I'm going to wrap around my fingers and put through. I've got my knot. I'm going to put it on my hook. So here is my half. This part here, so we can see, here's the middle. We come up. And that's the sort of post of your double crochet. So this is in US terms, just remember the post of your double crochet. And then this is the top of the stitch, the top of the stitch. And so I'm joining in here. So I'm coming through, I've got 2, and then I'm just pulling through. So I'm joining in here. I'm now going to work into that middle loop. So I'm doing, let me just check with my pattern. I'm doing 4. Yes. I'm doing 4 double crochets into the middle. Just so I can see the screen. So that's 2. 3. Oh, wrap first. 4. So I've got my join and my first 4. Then I'm going to chain 2. So 1, 2. And then I'm coming back into that same hole. So I'm coming round and I'm doing 4. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, and then I've got 1 more, 4. So I've got my 2 parts. I now need to join it So we basically want to join in the very similar place on the top. And so on this part of the stitch, you can see it's where I've joined in my last double crochet. So I'm just going to go in that same, if I come up, let it focus, in that same hole. In that same hole, I'm going to go into that. So you can see this is into that same hole, into that hole, come through, and I'm joining with my single crochet. So it's joined in the top. So that's my first round complete, worked on both parts. And now I need to travel up. So I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to single crochet, join, and you can see here is the post. Here is the post of my double crochet. And the top of the stitch, if I spread it out a bit, you can see the post. Here is the top of the stitch. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to anchor with my single crochet. And now I'm ready to turn. And I'm going to work back across. And so now this is our row 2. So we're going to go in between our stitches now. And because this is row 2, we're just going once in that first stitch. So I'm wrapping around and I'm coming between the first stitch of my second side. So between those stitches, working 1 double crochet, and then I'm working 1 double crochet in between the next stitches, and 1 double crochet. So you can see that we've worked 1 double crochet between our stitches. And now I'm at my corner. I'm going to work 2 double crochets. So my first double crochet, second double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2. Then I'm coming around the other side, so I'm working 2 more double crochets in that corner, 1, 2, and then I'm working a double crochet between each of my stitches all the way along. And now to complete, what we want to do is a double crochet in the top of that last stitch. So the reason we do this is because on this side we've joined with a single crochet and then chained and then joined with a single crochet. This is what we're representing, we're sort of emulating on the other side. So we come around and we go into the top of that stitch to do our final double crochet. And now we're going to join again in the side. So again, we've got the body of our stitch, and we can see actually that this is my chain up that's pretending to be a double crochet. And you can see here, I just want to join where my double crochet has joined in. I can go in the same hole. So I'm working in the same stitch, you can see. So that's my double crochet, and this is where it's joined in. And I'm coming and I'm anchoring by joining in the same stitch with a single crochet, pinching it in. And now you can see I've got 2 rounds joined in. And I'm going to do one more. So I'm coming 1, 2 for my height, and then I'm coming up. So here is my double crochet, and in the top of that stitch, we will join with a single crochet. Now I'm ready to turn, and so we get the right stitch amount from our third row up. Now in between that first and second stitch, I'm going to work 2 double crochets. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and then I'm going back to working 1 double crochet between each stitch until I get to the corner space, all the way to the corner space. And in the corner space, I'm doing 2 double crochets, 2 chains, 2 double crochets to turn, so you can see I've turned my corner, and then I'm working 1 double crochet between each stitch all the way along until I get to the last space. So when I'm saying between stitches, the in between here is where you're doing your last pair. So we're not working into the gap between side 1 and side 2. We're staying in our side 2. I'm working 2 double crochets in this part. And then again, we're doing our last double crochet where we're working into that last stitch. So we're coming, working in to the top of that last stitch. And so that's our, if we look, it's our single crochet. So we're working into our last stitch of that round. So it's a single crochet. Someone's asking about the stitch count. Not really. It's not that crucial. If your stitch count is a little bit out, but they're measuring the right amount of stitches, then don't worry too much. We're stitching them together. And like I was saying, like crochet and knit has got quite a lot of ease. It's got quite a lot of give. And when we're joining, and especially when we're joining our diagonal blocks in the pattern you'll see tomorrow, when the joining's revealed, it's not crucial. So if you've got 1 or 2 stitches out, do not panic. Do not panic. Just go with it. I'm quite a the phrase in English is slapdash, but I'm quite relaxed with my crochet. Like, just, you know, I always hate undoing things, so I will much always rather give it a stretch and a steam and see if I can get away with it. So yeah, please don't worry too much if your stitch count is 1 or 2 out at this bit. It shouldn't really matter. So I'm now just going to join this. So I'm just going to go over the join again. Where am I? Both of you. So I'm coming in and I'm joining into that stitch, and you can see it's the one that my double crochet is actually coming into. I'm just working into the same stitch with my single crochet, and now I've got my last round. So on the last round, and so I've just showed you with a small block, equivalent of a small block, but obviously big yarn. And so your round changes for each of the sizes just for your last round, because you can see we've joined here and it's a sort of very smooth, tight join. There we go. Got moved. Smooth, tight join. We now just want to make sure that we add our corner. So I'm chaining up my 2. I've done 1 chain, I've got 2. And in my last round, I'm then coming and I'm wrapping as to do a double crochet. And I'm working into that top stitch. I'm coming through and I'm working that double crochet to make my corner. So hopefully that has just really broken down where we join that diagonal block into, and so it feels like hopefully that has helped it make a lot more sense. But you don't, as long as it sort of has joined together, it doesn't need to be perfect. If you found it easier to just join in over the side of your double crochet, when it's all joined in and you've joined in the top, it will even out, so it will look fine. But I hope that, other than not being very smooth or glamorous to turn you around and show you, but hopefully that really helped. That helped you with your join. I hope that could make it a little bit simpler. So I think that is nearly at the end of my list of questions. I can see I've got a couple in the chat. So if anyone has still hung around for the whole of that and watched me do my awkward, slow diagonal triangle, if you've got any questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat now, and hopefully I can answer any extra. Let me have a little look. Or has that answered everything for everybody? And like I said, what I will do is I will upload this to YouTube, and then I will sort of, normally I think you have to wait like a day. I'll let it load its transcript, and then I will put it, I'll do the sort of auto translate and upload the different subtitles. So hopefully then that will go through all of those. What, a couple of questions. On the diagonal squares, are the tails for both colours? Oh, so with your diagonal squares, a few were asking me if you could sew in anything. Your like middle ones, I want the edge, a little bit of the edge. And as you will get the instalment tomorrow, I don't know if any of you are going to be super sewing in loads of ends this evening, but as you will get the next part tomorrow, you'll see how we use those ends. But with your diagonal blocks, you can sew in the middle ones. Technically, you only need, from the like base colour, the cream, you only need half per colour, the long tails. But if you've got them both on there, then don't worry, keep them both, and then just see when you join them which ones you use. Because they're only joining a small bit, they're not super long. But that will go through tomorrow. Let me just see if there's any other questions. But no, like my big thing, and I just want to sort of recap only a little bit, is one, like, thank you so much for joining this crazy make along mystery journey with me. I'm so honoured to be doing it. I've really enjoyed it. I've really loved doing it. And really honoured that you took that like leap of faith into the, you know, the mystery part of it. I'm quite a control freak as a maker when I'm making for myself. And so I don't know how I would be at making something that I didn't know what was coming. But I've been finding it really exciting. And I think that's one of like the really fun bits. And yeah, and so I've really loved seeing your mix. So keep sharing your images. It's so great to see them. And again, like, just work at your own pace. So there is a competition at the end, but don't stress over that. This is like, you know, we're making things to love. You know, you either keeping it or you might be giving it away, but it's for you to love and love doing it. So please don't stress about keeping pace. Like, just work at your own pace, because we all work really differently. We all, one, knit and crochet different speeds, but also have different amounts of free time. So don't worry about keeping up. Yeah, like, just work at your own pace. Keep sharing. The videos aren't going anywhere. But yeah, what's someone asking? No other make-alongs planned at the moment, but you never know what will happen. But yeah, so thank you so much. I'm not going to ramble any longer because I've been on here over an hour. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. Tomorrow is our next part, so I can't wait. So you can see the next part. But yeah, keep making at your own pace. Just love it. Any questions? I go into the Facebook group quite a lot, so you can put them in there. Loads of people are answering. And I will put this up and I will convert it so it gets in, hopefully, all the subtitles. Yeah, and have a really lovely evening. Thank you so much for joining me. even with looking at 2 different cameras and the tech a bit funny. But I will do another one of these as well, and where like I said, I will talk about if you want to make your piece a little bit longer or effective, we can have a little that. So have a fabulous evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for doing the make along. And yeah, I really hope you enjoy the next part so you can